Sitaram, welcome to the program, The Hindu Perspective. This evening, as we begin, once again, we start with a prayer. We worship Gajanan Swami. Om Gajananam Bhutganani Sevitam Kapita Jambu Palasara Bhakshanam Umasram Shoka Vinashikarakam Namami Vigneshwar Para Pankajam. Bolsi Gajanan Swami Ki Jai. And as mentioned previously, we take on the Gita, the premise of this program. Why we are doing this program and what is the aim and purpose of this program. We are taking it from chapter 16 of the Bhagavad Gita, verses 22 and 24. Krishna Bhagavan says, discarding the injunction of the scriptures, he who acts in an arbitrary way, according to his own sweet will such a person neither attain occult powers nor the supreme goal, not even happiness. Krishna Bhagavan is saying, therefore, the scriptures alone is your guide in determining what should be done and what should not be done. Knowing this, you ought to perform only actions which are ordained by the scriptures. This is the premise of this program, that while many people do many things in various areas, whether it's political, educational, social, whatever area it is, we are saying God is the basis of everything. I must get guidance from the scriptures to ensure that whatever we do, intend to do, or we are doing is based upon sound religious principles. And the education system in Trinidad and worldwide should be the same thing. As today we continue our discussion, I'll pass on to Pandit Jayadit Maharaj, who will introduce the topic and will take it from there. Panditji.
Thank you very much, Pandit Gyandev. And once again, welcome to our viewers on the Hindu Perspective. And we are happy once again to have you here with us. Join in. And of course, as we begin, just to give you a reminder that if you so desire, in fact, we invite you to call into the program at 223-1601, and you can make your contributions on the topic as you see fit, as well as those who may wish, 470-8103, WhatsApp number 470-8103. You can WhatsApp your question, your comments, and we will share it on the air. There's no need for you to identify yourself by name if you wish not to, but we're interested in hearing what you, our viewers, have to say on the topics that are discussed. As Panditji mentioned, last week, we spoke about the topic of education, and we focused on the issue of the return of students of face-to-face classes. We heard about different experiences by different schools, some from the government schools, some from the board schools, and of course at the different levels also. At the lower levels, from what we understand, the return in class is a lot higher. And that was identified simply because those who may have written SCA 2 years ago, this was their first opportunity to actually enter high school. So there's that level of excitement. And then at the higher levels, we learned that it was very sparse simply because of examinations. If a student were to get COVID, then they will not be able to write the examination and will have to wait a year. And that led into other discussions. What we ended on, and which will be the springboard for the topic this week, is the issue of mandatory vaccination. Now, that is a hot topic in our society, and if we look at discussions taking place globally, locally, and especially, on social media, which is really where you get the views of the grassroots, the everyday man, then you get different views on mandatory vaccination. And today we want to start off our discussion on that issue of mandatory vaccination and the issue of education. And what I would like to do is just to share some information, some research that we have gotten, after which we'll pass over to Pandit Gyani for his views, and then we'll continue the discussions like that. So the information I want to share, and really the topic we are looking at today, is really the issue of education and accessibility to education. And we'll talk a little bit more about accessibility, but the topic is accessibility as well as the benefit of social learning in a social environment. Now, some information that we have taken, this is drawn from the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And there are many articles in that declaration. And this particular article is Article 26. And what does Article 26 say? It says that everyone has the right to education. So that's the first thing, that the UN is saying that every person, and they have not given any qualification, so that every person has a right to education. Education shall be free, at least in the elementary and the fundamental stages. Elementary education shall be compulsory. Technical and professional education shall be made generally available, and higher education shall be equally accessible to all on the basis of merit. So this is what the UN is saying. Education shall be directed to the full development of the human personality and the strengthening of respect for human rights and the fundamental freedom of all. It shall promote understanding, tolerance, and friendship amongst all nations, racial and religious groups, and shall further the activities of the United Nations for the maintenance of peace. So parents have a prior right to choose the kind of education that shall be given to the student or to the children, so that parents, of course, are key stakeholder in this whole area of education, and they have a choice in the type of education. This is why we have government schools, we have the non-national schools, we have board schools, and Pangari will elaborate on this. We have homeschooling. So we have different types of education, and the choice of education, of course, remains with the parent, who is a primary caregiver. The United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, what we call UNESCO, states that education as a fundamental human rights lies at the heart of UNESCO's mission, and it is enshrined in the United Declaration of Human Rights and many other international human rights instruments. The right to education is one of the key principles underpinning the Education 2030 Agenda of Sustainable Development Goals, number 4, which is called SDG 4. And this is adopted by international communities. And SDG 4 is right-based and seeks to ensure the full enjoyment of the right to education as fundamental to achieving sustainable development. So that these are some of the information that when we have done our research, you see, when we look at accessibility, when we look at education and the rights of education in the context of the discussion, which is mandatory vaccination, well, we are saying that if you are not vaccinated, you may not be allowed to enter an institution, whether it be private, public. So that we are looking at the freedom and the right to education in the context of that. And while we are seeing all of this, you know, there are other issues that come up. So that we spoke about the issue of accessibility last week. And there's one research that was done in the Caribbean, and this was done by the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. And this was very recent, only in 2021. And it says, in spite of the above, so in spite of all of the efforts that are being made, that the Caribbean faces many issues as it relates to technology adaptation, so that the rate of which we adopt technology, you know, what is called digital literacy, our ability as teachers and students to use technology, that is challenged. And the cost of technology, the accessibility of devices, the size of the population, the logistics and cultural factors all impede education in the Caribbean. And society, of course, has evolved, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. But this is just a starting point and setting up the context of what is going to be the discussion today. And I know I've said a lot, but Panditji would have had a copy of this also. So I've read it for the benefit of those of you who are viewing our program. And Panditji, I'll just pass over to you to, you know, share your views on this and first take the discussion forward.
Thank you, Panditji. As you mentioned, from the United Nations, all documents are there. I'm not passing judgment. Sometimes you think the United Nations have a lot to say, but does little. Because you find you have countries where poverty is still there, education is not proper, water can't be had, schools are being held all over the world, and nothing, well, obviously nothing being done. It's difficult to do anything for them. So United Nations documents are there for us as a guide, and hopefully it can be implemented. Now, what we have to understand in reality is that politics and economics rules everything. So a child has to go to school. If you have to get mandatory vaccination, who decides that? Politics, the government. We take Canada, for instance. We take Trinidad, we take the States, anywhere. They started with mandatory vaccination, started monetary things, but eventually they're changing. Because it shows that when you force people to do things, it's not the right thing. You don't extract discipline that way. Because mandatory vaccination, mandatory anything, is not the best way to go. So we in Trinidad, I don't think we have mandatory vaccination for students, but but we have to look at it and see whether it's necessary. As one person said, if you show the person the benefit of vaccination, a good PR program, a good information knowledge for the population, they will readily accept it. We don't have to go and have a mandatory vaccination for anything else, mandatory for anything else. Everybody sees it as important. So that in terms of mandatory vaccination and children going to school, well, that is something we have to look at carefully. You know, and I just want to make one point. If there was no COVID, there'll be no discussion on mandatory vaccination. COVID has brought rise to this discussion because COVID has brought to us the safety of the students. And some people, well, Trinidad is a small country, so we follow what the bigger countries say. And they say, keep your children home, keep them home, but now they're opening up. The States is opening up, send back children to school. Trinidad, we are doing the same thing. So we are saying, let us see what is the best situation. And that's the biggest problem in society today. Where do we get the true information from? What do we get the information that will really be beneficial to the students and the parents? So that in our system, in Hinduism, I said that was never there before because of COVID. Now, what I would like to do is just give an introduction into the education system of the Hindus. No longer we had Gurukul system, where you send a child, a Gurukul is called, a guru, a teacher, who remains in one place and try and go to him. And he teaches everything and everybody. Now that system has been outdated, it doesn't apply. It applies some places in India, but not to many places. Now you have decentralized system where children go to school. And the teachers have become not gurus. I don't think the word guru is the right word to use for teacher. Teachers become teachers. They are public servants. They are persons who want to have organizations represent their rights. They are persons who want to have all rights and privileges as a worker, and so it goes on. So that what we are saying, in Hinduism, we are saying the teachers must be respected. And if that respect comes about, then we have very little problem. And those are two words which we have to discuss as going further. Discipline and respect. Recently, we saw it in the television where the children are going out to school and already have fights. Is it lack of discipline? Is it lack of supervision? What is it really? So we have to look at these words and see discipline and these things, how it impacts the children. And coupled with the fact that economics rules everything and politics rules everything, how you're going to go about it. Couple that with United Nations designation that every child has a right for education. He has a right for education, but does he get it?
Yes, Panditji, thank you very much for those for that view and those perspectives. So I think that what we are agreeing on is that students have that, according to the UN Declaration on Human Rights, and we subscribe to that as a country also, that students have that right and freedom to education. And the way that our education system is built, I think it aligns also with what we are seeing here, where they're saying at least at the elementary and the fundamental stages. So we do have preschool education, we have primary school education, we have secondary education. And by law, students are supposed to attend school at least until the age of 16, which is normally when they would write what we call O-levels, right? What is CSEC? So that fundamental level of education, at least our system is built upon that, and through the instrumentality of the education system and whatever governments who in power, putting these systems in place, that we do have that advantage where we have that opportunity to get that fundamental foundation in education. At the later stages, which is considered anything after Form 5 or Form 6, which falls in the post-secondary, and then tertiary and undergraduate and graduate education, of course, that is different. That is optional. And at that stage, it may not be free. It may be that you have to pay for whatever programs you want to do. And there is assistance with GATE and all of those things. But I mean, economic factors. And again, Panditji, I think that, as we discussed last week, everything is contextual. So when we spoke about, we were talking about students, but we realized that we need to bring teachers, we need to bring parents into the discussion because they're all part of the education, ecosystem. And it is the same thing with education, that it is impossible to look at education in isolation, that everything works together so that the economic environment, the political environment, the social, the technological, the legal environment, all of those things, they come to bear upon education and the outcomes that we see. But I think that based on what you have discussed so far, Panditji, what you have shared, that we agree that education is free and that fundamental right as contained in Article 26 of the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that at the least that should not be taken away. And we are saying that if it comes to the point where we are saying that you have to be vaccinated before you can be educated, that does take away that human right. That is just a view we have. And of course, you know, we are asking our viewers, if you have a different view, you have something to add. 223-1601, WhatsApp message 470-8103, and we are going to share that. So Panditji, I just want to move on to another point, and then we want to jump a little more into the scriptural aspect of it. But before we do that, we are scheduled to take a break, so that we'll take a few minutes and we'll see you all back in a few minutes' time. So thank you.
Every day, normal people like you and I have questions about the law, and they desire to understand simply that which binds us, guides our conduct and our journey throughout our lives. From as simple as buying a soft drink, for you the consumer there are laws, and for the business person there are also company laws. Therefore, as aptly named, you are the law represents you. I am Umesh Prasad, criminal law defense attorney, and I invite you to tune in every week. The mission is simplifying the law, and the purpose is providing education on the relationship between you and the law and on your legal rights. An informed and empowered citizenry is key because you are the law.
Hey everyone, I'm Ricky Kandu.
And I am Akshay Kandu.
Join us on IETV for a brand new talent show,
where we invite you to showcase your talent in the form of song, music, dance, skits,
comedy, and even magic.
WhatsApp us at 383-0655.
And you can be featured on IETV's talent show on the #1 TV station
where culture is alive.
Welcome back, listeners, and we continue our program. So Pandagyandev, we have discussed the issue of accessibility of education. We have seen that in terms of our education system, that it does align with the UN's declaration on human rights in terms of freedom, at least, and free education at the fundamental and the elementary level. Now, I would like to ask and discuss with you a topic that is something that is very, at least in the Caribbean, and I will share some of the research taken from the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, which was done only in 2021, right? So this was last year, a very recent report, which talks about the cost of education, the logistics, the what we call digital literacy, the ability of students not only access but to use. So I can have the best of devices, but doesn't mean I'm able to use it. So that area of digital literacy becomes very important also. And all of this really speaks to that issue of accessibility. How accessible is education to our children in Trinidad and Tobago? And you being a past president and you have worked in different types of schools, you worked at a government school, and you also worked at a board school, and you have a tremendous amount of experience, so that when you look at true accessibility to education, I don't know, Panditji, if you can share your views on that with us.
Definitely, Panditji. I would just like to infuse my personal experience from the primary school to the secondary school. The primary school, government and board assisted. Secondary school, same thing, government and board assisted. In both areas, I've noticed over the years, I've taught for more than 30 years, that what the problem is, accessibility means, my mind goes back to, there's a committee in Trinidad called the Population Council of Trinidad and Tobago, which used to advise government where to build schools, where schools are needed, where schools are not needed. So if there's no school in a remote area, the accessibility becomes difficult. So that what happens, and I'm not saying this is what obtains right now, but most of the time, infrastructure cost is done based upon what the government thinks is the right thing to do. So accessibility will be undermined if schools are not built in areas where it is needed. That's the first thing. I noticed that in primary school when I was there for a few years, I taught both in a government and non-government school. That part of the problem was parents did not send children to school because they had to keep them home. I've had many instances where parents saying, my child has to stay home because I have to go market. My child has to stay home, we have to go to work and there's nobody to see the small one at home. So what happens, the parents themselves keep children home. It's not lack of accessibility, but lack of parental insight that how important education is. And that's something I think should be addressed by the government, the authorities, to let parents know how important education is for their children. So if parents put their situation first and then the child, or the child never. And secondary school, I see the same thing happening. Even worse in secondary school. Parents say children are bigger. Some of them even stop them to go and work. Why we know they're not supposed to be working while education's under 16 supposed to be in school? It happens. So in education of the parent needs to be done urgently for them to see the importance of education. So these two situations, one in secondary and primary school, where the parents themselves, accessibility is there, the school is there, but parents are not sending their children to school many, many times.
Yes, Panditji, and thanks again for sharing your experience. And I mean, if I can add it, maybe some of us, even those who may be looking on this program, have, we are in different situations. I know some communities, even like where our temple is located, that this type of, if in this day and age, with the availability and accessibility, so that accessibility to education is not just based on geographic location. You may have 10 schools in an area and you may still find that because what you're saying, because of cultural issues. And again, this research was done by the United Nations Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean last year spoke about cultural issues. So that we do see in some communities, especially more traditional communities, that, children drop out of school at the age of 10 years, 11 years, and they begin working, they begin planting garden and all of that. And nothing is wrong with that. I mean, there was one time that we had an agrarian society. That is how we live, we sustain ourselves. So nothing is wrong with agriculture, nothing is wrong with any profession. But what we are saying is that students need to have some strong foundation or some basic foundation. And that right and that privilege many times are taken away from these students. But as you are saying, Pandit, who do we blame for that? Where does that blame lie? And who is responsible? And sometimes it's really an issue of enforcement. And we know that not just in Trinidad, but many Caribbean countries, that is not the issue. The laws are there, the laws are written, but the enforcement becomes something else. And who are the ones to enforce that? And what may be some of the roles that we, maybe ourselves as Swaha, as leaders, what are the roles that we can play in trying to enforce and encourage parents to understand that students should at least attend school until a certain age and have a basic level of education?
But you see, part of the problem is we are dealing with education. And if the parent is not educated in that sense, if they are not beneficiaries of an education system, they do not see it as important. So it has to stop somewhere, because everything going on in perpetuity. Ever since our ancestors came here, the plant came and so on, they were in the agriculture sector, and they saw that important their livelihood. And they said the livelihood is more important than anything else. So if you can make $1 by doing something in agriculture, you'll do it. So the parents need to be educated. In addition to the fact that the institutions, the governmental institutions, those other institutions must implement these rules, these regulations that children must be in school. Now, whether it is a community policing, whether it is, a simple thing. If you ask how many children drop out of school and how many will approach, how much of those parents will approach the children who drop out of school and what was done. If you're not come to school for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, for a whole term and come next term, was anything done from an educational point of view? So we need follow-up, we need all these things. But the basic point is, if parents see the importance of education, they will ensure their children go. Now, some parents see it. And this is a problem. You find the rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer. Because those who are in a well-off financial position ensure their child go to school. ensure the child gets the O-level, A-level degree. But those are less economic situation. They always seen as earn $1 for the day when you're up to come and get your SCA belly full to eat a mouthful of food. So they had to stop with the parents, and something had to be taken drastic action to let the parents know. So we need to educate the parents starting from now. We can't wait until tomorrow. Let the parents know, just like mandatory vaccination, give them information, bombard them with information from governmental agencies to see the importance of education, keeping children in school, and give them a support system from the state. Thank you.
So Pandit, yes. So pretty much what you're saying is that it's a vicious cycle, right? And
That's
we need
definitely
to find some way. We need to find some way to break that cycle. And I mean, out of the program, one of the things that we are hoping is that even for ourselves as an organization, I mean, based on our constitution, as a registered NPO, SWAHA has a mandate, cultural, arts, religion, yes, all of that. But education is a big part of what we do. And certainly this type of outreach, coming out of these discussions, and this, we are being elucidated here in terms of the realities that we are facing. And of course, coming out of all of these, it will help us to design and to craft programs that can address some of these issues. So Panditji, we spoke about the cultural issues in terms of accessibility. Now, again, this is compounded because when you look at certain factors, so for example, and again, COVID ties into this because it was already a little difficult, but now we are seeing cases where parents are being unemployed. So parents have lost their jobs. In one case, we are saying that, all right, we are not back face-to-face, so that there was online schooling 100%. There was a case of, number one, students not having devices. That has been a problem. I know that SWAHA and SWAHA School, that we are proud to say this, not boastful, but proud, because we have made a contribution that through, the leadership of the organization, we have been able to secure devices and give it to the most needy of students. So, but there are many who are not that fortunate. And unfortunately, they did not get the same level of education. So I can tell you that if you don't have a device, what a teacher will have to do is that they will have to actually prepare worksheets, drop it off at the school. The student will have to come collect that, do that manually, and then drop it back to the school and get that corrected. That could never be the same as a synchronous lesson where a teacher is sitting with a student and they're in a synchronous environment versus a student collecting a worksheet and trying to learn from that. So right off there, that was inequality in education. So that in itself would have created some problems. So that issue of accessibility to technology, number one, and even if you do have the technology, then there's what you call digital literacy. Is it that the teachers themselves, have they been trained? Is it that the students are trained? And we know that technology is the way that the world is going, but we have not done this in a gradual way. We have not moved towards technology as a choice or something that was strategic. It was something that was done out of, necessity. We were pushed into that, and we were not ready for that. And that in itself would have caused some issues. So in addition to what you're saying, Panditji, the cultural factors, the unpreparedness of students, the inability of students to have access to devices, the lack of training, competencies, added to, the increased expense in the cost of living, transport, and all of these things would be adding up to students not having access to education. And before we continue, of course, we'll go to a break, and when we come back from a break, we'll continue our discussions.
Welcome to Burning Issues on IETV. Burning Issues is a contemporary show that is going to be dealing with current affairs. While we talk about the pandemic, while we talk about the issues of health, crime, be it public utilities, be it taxation, be it the economy, how we diversify. It is now for us to talk about these issues, and this we will be talking with in the show for the next few weeks on IETV with Dr. Mandrika Bahal and I, Vishnu Raghunath. We talk burning issues.
We all want to save money without compromising on the best quality insurance coverage. If you are renewing your motor or homeowner insurances soon, then call us at Ekta Consultants. With over 27 years in the insurance industry, we can offer you significant savings on your insurance premiums. As agent for Guardian Group, we assure you the best quality coverage at a very competitive price. Email us at ektagroupmail@gmail.com.
Welcome back, viewers. So we are continuing our discussion on the issue of accessibility. We have discussed the issue of culture and accessibility in terms of availability of devices, number one, the training that is necessary, as well as the increase in the standard of living. Now, when we speak about culture also, culture is tied to religion to a certain extent. And in our board school, we find that we are able to manage that aspect of it so that within our board schools, and we could talk for SWAHA because that is the organization that we belong to and we don't have the right to speak for anyone else. But I'm sure that in other cases, you can look for yourself and see. And some of you may have children who belong to other board schools. But in the case of SWAHA, we have made a concerted effort to inculcate within the curriculum so that there's what the curriculum requires us to deliver, then there's core curriculum, and there's expansion of the curriculum, and certain practices, for example, Hawan on a Tuesday morning, ensuring that there's no eating of non-vegetarian food, which in itself creates positive vibration. The recitation of mantras, which is positive vibration, creates positive energy. The presence of murtis, meditation, all of those practices that are done at the school that parents can attest to, that brings a different attitude in their children, a different mindset, a different focus, that those are the ways, at least from the SWA Hindu College, we have been able to address some of those cultural issues that affects, the outcomes of education. Because what we are saying is that if education is not being, received to the extent that it's supposed to be, ideally, then the outcomes of education is going to be diminished. So that what I would like to do is pass over to Panditji, and he can give some more insights, being a past principal of the SWA Hindu College, what has been the effect of meditation and some of these practices like self-development, some of these practices, he will be able to identify all of these, the meditation, the yoga, the Hawan, all of these on the students and their achievement. And he can also indicate us, because remember, this is a Hindu perspective, and Panditji, as the expert and the senior Pandit, he will give us some information on what are the outcomes of education according to our Hindu scriptures. So Panditji, I pass over to you.
Panditji, I would like to just mention, as you go into that topic very beautifully, the history of SWA Hindu College. It was a college where first they received under 30% of children from C exams. Under 30%. And from that, they have reached a stage where people are lining up to get into SWA College. Why? For reasons you mentioned. One, discipline. Two, we instill in them the values of religion, which is the values of mankind, love, respect. So when you have a hall with 600 children sitting down, all not Hindus, I think the percentage of Hindus in SWA Hindu College was just 58%. They are non-Hindus, sit down there and respect and participate in a Hindu activity. And we're not going to try and convert anybody. Rather, we are developing in them the concept of respect and regard for others. And this is why school is important. The SWA has done that in Hindu College. When we tell them meditation, we say, no, this is not a Hindu thing. Meditation is something for development of the brain. So when you sit and you meditate, whether you meditate on a cloud, a beautiful river, when you meditate, you control your thoughts. It reduces violence in school. And there's a big problem in school today. So what SWA has done here basically is give the recipe for a good school without all these negativities. So you have Hawan, religious practices, meditation, vegetarianism. They are saying what you eat is who you are. So if you have a non-violent way of living, we don't condemn anybody that's their way. We are saying we can remove that to bring better thoughts to students. So SWA Hindu College has done all these things. And then what happened? We emphasize education. And we emphasize education as per our scriptures. But as I mentioned from our initial scripture, the Vedas, what it says, education should aim at enabling us, a person, to act accordingly. And this is a Hindu way of life. And education philosophy had that state also, to produce a well-rounded child who can take his place in society. The Vedas have the same thing. It must perform, the education must achieve dharma. What is dharma? It outlines it here. One, it says very beautifully, dharma means the child must have dhriti, that is determination. You want to do 8 subjects or 9 subjects, you want to achieve something, have determination. So the education system must instill that in them, which we are doing in Swaha. You must have kshama, forgiveness. What causes fight? What causes all these differences in society? There's no forgiveness. There's an egoistic approach. The Vedas say there must be dam, that is control of the breath, the life breath in us. What you call pranayam, to purify ourselves. There must be chorina karna, do not steal from anybody. You know, the bahari or bhitari safai. That means internal, external cleanliness. Sat sau dayadan. Cleanliness is important. Indriyo ka nigrahan. What happens? How often can you find a child sit quietly without moving? We do that in Swahili college. Sit quietly for 5 minutes. Don't move, don't scratch, don't do anything. Control your senses, control your hands, control your eyes, control your feet. Control is your body, you control it. And so I is saying this is what our Vedas taught us. Control the body. Then buddhi, develop intellect. And develop intellect means do not take any drugs, anything that affect the intellect negatively. Nothing that subdues the intellect. Buddhi development. There it says vidya, get knowledge. And Hinduism are very beautiful. We can't talk about it today. It's 64 branch of knowledge which you must engage in. It says such, be truthful at all times. And then it says krodna karna, control anger. So this is the Hindu version of education which we try to instill in our students. And this is why these things reap benefits. And so our Hindu college do have fights, you have all the negativities that are associated with other schools. Here and there they may have one or two, but as principals, as deans and so on, we handle it because we have the fundamental in there of the religion of education. So education makes one a better human being. This is what our Vedas say, our scriptures say, and it's what Swa Hindu College tries to do. Make one a better human being. Panuji.
Thank you, Pandit. And again, that is very insightful. And most importantly, you know, we are seeing the alignment between what is the philosophy of education as we know it, as secular education, as well as the infusion or the presence of those ideologies within our scriptures. Now, Panditji, again, from drawing on your experience as a senior Pandit in our country, can you give us examples of instances in scriptures, you know, where you see that this coming together of both the secular and the spiritual, and what has been the positive outcomes of those?
Now, our scripture is replete with those examples. Sri Ram, Krishna Bhagavan, and even historical perspective in the Gurukul system. One teacher now does specialization. Now, long ago, one teacher teaches you everything as far as the school is concerned. Now, in primary school, you have that system. Still, one teacher teaches maths, social studies, English, everything in the primary school. But in secondary school, there's specialization. By one teacher, you have a maths teacher, you have a Spanish teacher, you have an English teacher. And so you find what happens in educational training in teachers' college. When I went to teachers' college, 2 teachers' college. I went in UE and also in Valsain Teachers' College. And they tell you, one of the things which influences education is the personality of the teacher. So you have a Spanish teacher who is very aggressive. You have a math teacher who is very aggressive. You have an English teacher who is very subdued. So you find all these teachers bring about their own personalities onto the students. They may not want to accept it, but that's the reality. And who look over these things? The principal, the supervisors must ensure it happens. But in primary school, you have one teacher coming from that class, and that teacher's personality will impact upon the child. And I can remember long ago when I was in teachers' college, I did a thesis on that. And it's a topic that is maybe be a bit not too pleasant to the taste or the mouth, but it was asked why it is you have homosexuality or you have men behaving like women more and more going about. We're not passing judgment on it. I did a research and said, because of the fact that in primary school, they have more women in the teaching service. That's a fact. I'm not sure it's changing now. So every day, every little boy is seeing a female in front of him, acting, reacting. So that can affect his mentality. So what we are saying, this substantiates the point that teachers influence children's development. And we have to make sure people are given, and this is where teaching service board comes in. The teaching service commission. When you interview somebody, it's not a 5 levels, 6 levels. All right, go ahead. You could how do we interview them to find out their personality, impact upon the students? And this is something which needs to be looked at also. So in our religion, in the denominational schools, we ensure that the teachers have a spiritual backing, a spiritual grounding. So the teachers must know what Diwali tells us, respect for women. You must know holy Bhagwa. What tells us respect for the child, not abuse the child. You must know about Ram Navami. What tells us respect for men. So every function tells us our respect for different areas of society. Krishna Bhagwan, Janamashmi. So each situation tells us about respect for somebody else or some area where it needs to expose the child to. So the national school that like in Swahili, we expose the children to all the areas of development for the child to take place in. So he can get a proper grounding in a family life, whether he's a single parent from a single parent home, or 2 men, 2 female, whatever it is, that is regardless. Or he's given spiritual grounding, so they can act according to the scriptures, which is to bring and make a contribution to society. So when you go to a Hindu school like Swahili Hindu College, you are taught to respect all and accept. We can't change everything. We can't come out and impose our way of thinking upon people. We are not saying homosexuality, lesbianism is wrong. We are saying what happened is act according to the principle which will develop society and make you a proper person in that society. So this is what a Hindu education system gives, a development process to make you take your place, and ultimately we'll all die and then the hereafter. So we are preparing you for the world here. The Gita did very beautifully, and for when you are leaving here, what are you taking with you for the next life? So it prepares us for both here and hereafter. This is what the education system gives us, the Hindu education system as for Swahili Hindu College.
Thanks, Panditji. I think that's a very deep perspective, and it was well integrated together to show what our philosophy is, so that while we do adhere to what is the curriculum as defined by the Ministry of Education, we do recognize the need for the Hindu perspective and to infuse those values and that value-based education, and one doesn't supersede the other. In fact, they work in tandem. Now, Panditji, you touched on a very important point there, and it was one of the last area I have here prepared, and then I just want to go to some messages that I've received here, and probably we'll end with that going into next week's discussions, because the questions that have been asked here by obviously very intelligent persons who are well read. We may not be able to have all of the answers, but we'll explore some of it. So the first issue, or the last issue I want to bring up before we move across to our questions, and again, we'll take our final break before we come back, and then we'll wrap up with this particular issue, and then our final section, which is our question and answers taken from our messages. So we'll go to a break now.
Have you heard of the Beautylicious Caravan? Come partner with us at IETV. We are looking for the professionals in TNT. Are you a makeup artist, hairstylist, nail tech, a barber, or a person who sells all the professional products? We are here to share your knowledge, your skills, and do demos with you. Come on, partner on with us at IETV. Contact me at 756-1764 or ani.ramsamuj@gmail.com. See you soon at your location.
Hi everyone, welcome to Prime Time with Surendra on IETV, where we bring to you interviews with some of the biggest music icons in our local entertainment industry on Fridays at 9 p.m. I am your host, Surendra Ramuta. Stay tuned and keep it locked on IETV, #1 station for news and entertainment.
Prime time with Surendra. Prime time with Surendra. Prime time with Surendra. Prime time.
Welcome back, listeners. And I'm just going to share one more point based on what Panditji would have shared on the issue of, diversity. So society over time has gone through many changes. And as society have changed, the education have changed. So that overall, when you look at, especially in the Caribbean, and how the face of education has changed, we have gone through agrarian society, and we had an education system suited to that. From that, we moved on to the skills area, which we call TVET, and we still have that. Then we moved on to service-based industries. Then we moved on to knowledge-based industries. And the latest evolution in our education system, and you'll find this locally guided by international education bodies and accreditation bodies, etc., is the area of equity, diversity, and justice. And that is something that everything that we are talking about is really based on that. To what extent is there equity in the education system? To what extent is there, fairness? What extent is there justice? And to what extent is diversity respected? And not just diversity, we can recognize just diversity, but beyond diversity, you need integration. So diversity is simply recognizing that, there are different parts, like different parts of a puzzle, the different pieces, that's diversity. When you put it together, that's integration. It forms a picture. So that is where education has reached. And Panditji, you have alluded to some of that. I'll just give you an example. One of the education institutes I'm working with in Guyana, we work with a chartered institute for supply chain management out of the UK. And one of the requirements for us to be approved as a study center for the Caribbean is that we must have a policy, number one, on what is called modern day slavery, where you do not take advantage of persons. And the second thing, very important, they wanted to see what was our diversity policy. So Panditji, you have brought up something that I know that many consider controversial, but it's just a reality of our society. And it is in the school, it is in all parts of our society, this idea of diversity. And diversity is not only sexual orientation, but you have diversity of race, of religion, of ethnicity, of gender, biological sex, male, female. And then we have everything that comes in between. And, I'm just asking you, this could just be your view, Panditji. You can say what you think. It doesn't have to represent the view of the organization. But in terms of Hinduism and our Hindu view, I know that, at least for myself, I know that we say Samadrishi Samadarshan, which is taken with chapter 6 in Bhagavad Gita, that we see equanimity in all. We see everything with equal vision. We see Sri Krishna present in everything. And at least for myself, that is my basis for accepting any diversity in this world. Having been the principal of that school, what has been the approach of the Swa Hindu College in terms of acceptance of diversity, regardless of what that diversity may be? And what may be some of the scriptural information that you can share to support this?
Raji, there are two things in Hinduism. One, we do not condemn or criticize anybody because of who they are. So that if you are Hindu or Muslim or Christian, you don't believe in God. It's not a basis of condemnation. You don't believe that any race is superior. You don't believe that any religion is superior. What we say is what Krishna Bhagwan said. You have Sattvic, Rajasic, and Tamasic. You have to look and see what is the outcome of the behaviors and see whether it is truthful, it is progressive, whether there is something that needs attention to. So that as far as diversity is concerned, we accept diversity. This is why God created the world. God wasn't stupid. I would think we could say God Otish. To create a Hindu, a Christian, a Muslim, to create a Asian, African, a Chinese, Indian. God knew what he did. This is what we have to fight against. This is where self-development comes in. Hinduism teaches us we have to see, as you mentioned beautifully, Panditji, Samdrishti. Aham Brahm Asmi. We're seeing each as a child of God. You're not seeing the physical features which will die, burnt or buried. So diversity is accepted in Swa Hindu College. And the matter I mentioned in Swa Hindu College, the last check I made was non-Hindus are majority. So we don't say you're non-Hindu, don't come here. When you come here, we respect you and you respect us. equal respect, self-respect. So this is what we need to do. And in that frame of mind, we have to accept that there is in education, two things which needs to be implemented to ensure education is effective. One is punishment, and two, rewards. Punishment doesn't mean beating people, but you have to suffer the consequences of your actions are not right. And if you do something good, you must be rewarded. If you do something good, you must be rewarded. As Confucius rightfully said, if you reward bad with good, how will you reward good? If you reward bad with good, how will you reward good? So that those who are doing good must be rewarded, whether it's scholarships, whether it's bursaries, whatever it is. And those who are failing must be given a chance to repeat and help themselves come to standard. So Hindu College has those things to ensure education is effective.
Panditji, thanks a lot, and I am convinced more and more that you have clairvoyance, right? Because your statements always lead into the next thing. So what you have said there, you have mentioned the term scholarship, and again, and we apologize to those. I mean, there are so many messages that are coming through. It is impossible to address all. So that we'll just take one for today, but over the weeks we are going to address all of them. And Panditji, since you mentioned the word scholarship and rewards and all of that, I just want to read to you one of the messages that was sent on the WhatsApp chat that speaks to that particular issue. And we have less than 10 minutes, so that we'll see how much you can discuss before we come to the end of the program. And the issue that is being asked really here is the issue of equity in education. So you already spoke over that, the evolution of society from agrarian to equity, diversity, justice. This is where we are now. So this issue of equity in education, and what the person is asking, they didn't give their name, but what they are asking is, what is the opinion of the panel on the government's decision to offer less scholarships, so that the government make a decision that less scholarships are being offered based on merit, and much more bursaries based on need, so that it has moved now from getting scholarship based on merit, which is really academic achievement. And what the government is saying is that we are given a large amount of bursaries, and a bursary is different from a scholarship, and these bursaries are based on need. And is that considered equitable or is not seen as equitable? This is the question that has been asked of the panel by this particular viewer. So Panditji, do you have any views that you'd like to share on that?
Definitely. I eventually earlier mentioned there was something called the Population Council of Trinidad and Tobago. With that body of service tell the government how many nurses we need, how many doctors we need, where we need schools, how many police stations we need. So that if the government decision is based upon giving scholarships on this, I have no problem. It is based on other factors, but I can't say what the decision is made upon. But there are many people, and you will know in the media have it, who get scholarship and don't come back to Trinidad. Many people who get scholarship and don't even go into the field of giving scholarship in. So if the scholarship is given in the first place, because of the need of society, you don't have any problems. And given if the society needs 100 nurses, you can give 100 scholarship in that area. If the society needs 100 we call engineers, you give that area. So that the government must use its mandate, its initiative to give scholarships where it is needed. And those give say, my personal view, we're going to 100 scholarship. We don't care who gets it. No, give it to where it is needed. And why are we giving scholarship? Because I said it's based upon rewards. If a child doesn't study so hard, does so many things, and just doesn't get a scholarship because he didn't have enough scholarship. So that we are saying the whole idea of scholarships should be reviewed and given based upon the needs of the society, what society needs. This is the basis of giving scholarship, not just to say, we give 100 scholarship, we give 400 scholarship, we give 300 scholarship. No, we give the needs of society. This is my opinion.
So Panditji, so we have about 5 minutes remaining. So I'll just share my view on this also, because I feel strongly about this also. Yes, academic achievement is very, very important. And I think that we can, this is certainly a topic that we can discuss a little further. And next week, we'll have the principal back, and he'll have some insights also into how this process works. So I think that whether the process is equitable or not, whether it is fair or not, it really depends on how it is going to be executed, which at this time we don't have that information. So that we will get that information. But I personally, and based on everything that we are saying, Panditji, even what you identified as, from the Hindu perspective, from scriptures, that the idea of education is to build a person that can help build a society. You know, there are two aspects. Yeah, you have to maintain the status quo in some areas, but you also have to look at the changing needs of the society, because I mean, we live in what is called a VUCA environment, right? It is volatile, uncertain. It's a very complex, very ambiguous environment, right? I mean, you can have what we call a black swan event anytime, like COVID and all of that, so that there's no certainty in this world, so that there needs to be a level of flexibility, and whatever resources has to be allocated needs to be allocated based on what is in needs of that time. So from that aspect, for myself at least, I agree with that. But what I would want to see more to determine and to answer this question being asked by our viewer. So viewer who sent in this question, next week, hopefully, we'll have all of the documentation. We can explore it further. And then we can probably give a view on whether, you know, how it is being done is fair or not. But we do understand, and at least for myself, I believe that based on everything we are saying, taking what Panditji has shared from scriptures, that if you are looking for the ideal person to fit into the society and to make a contribution, then the resources of our country should go towards those individuals and those areas that will give that outcome. So whether we are moving in the area of technology, whether it is engineering, whatever area, there are so many new areas and different areas, whether it's the development of vaccination, we don't know, whatever it may be, genetics and all of that, then definitely the resources should be shared and should be used for the development of those areas. So Panditji, I mean, that is my view. We have 2 minutes remaining. So Panditji, is there anything that we'd like to share as we conclude with our program for today?
Just to say one line, education aims to bring a person in society who can make a contribution and fit into society and encourage changes. And our education system needs to address that urgently. Not just send a child to school, give him food, give him transport, and that's it. No, make sure he makes a contribution to society. So society will perpetuate itself in goodness. That's it, Panji.
Thank you, Pandit. And as we wrap up, I would just like to share some information. You know, Swaha in terms of Monday, the 28th, and the Tuesday is Shivratri. And I know that members and viewers, you would be interested to know whether or which temple will be having celebrations. So we encourage you to call the Swaha office at 674-7384. 674-7384, and you'll be told which of the centers are having service. In addition to that, IETV will be having an entire day of Shivratri programming, so that we invite you to tune in on Monday so that you can view all our Shivratri celebrations across our different centers. I remember this program will be aired again tonight at 7, so you can invite others, you can share it. It's on Facebook also. Share it to others, let them share it, you know, so we have wider viewership, and it will be repeated on Saturday at 10 o'clock. So this brings us to the end of our program. We have discussed a lot of information, and, you know, in summary, we have looked at the issue of freeness of education, at least at the fundamental level, the rise of every person to education. And we are seeing that in our system, and definitely at our school, that we are seeing that prevalent, that we have no problems with that. We looked at some of the mitigating factors: cultural, cost, accessibility, cost of living, and then we went very deep into the Hindu perspective, where Panditji, he shared a lot of information, valuable information from our scripture. So we hope that this episode would have been valuable to you, and we encourage you to continue looking at our program. And of course, next week, Tuesday, at the same time, 4:30, we'll see you again for another edition of the Hindu Perspective. Thank you, and Sitaram.